Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Dice Trays Action. Before we get to it, I just want to take a moment to give a shout out to Lost Haven Art, who did our logo and the assets that would become our overlay. If you want to know more about them or see their amazing work, you really should. You can go check them out at Lost Haven Art over on Twitter. Also, in the coming weeks, there will be a couple of really exciting announcements. We can't get into the specifics yet, but I'm really, really excited. Keep your eyes open on my Twitter at the Lion Knight 42, where you will be able to be kept up to date with all of that. Lastly, this upcoming Sunday, I will be on the People's Ascension doing RPGs Uncovered. We are going to be doing the post series episode for Lost Eons Genistar. It has been an absolutely fantastic game so far, and we are so excited to be able to sit down and talk about what's happened. And while this is technically in the past, I am very, very excited to see how it ends and then to be able to share that with you. And you can find that on twitch.tv, the People's Ascension. Also, if you come here, I will be hosting it, so you'll be able to get there through there. You can also find them on Twitter at, I believe, the same thing, and I will include a link in the chat when this is a thing. Boom. So, with that said, let's get to the recap for this episode of DTA. Last time that we left this illustrious group, they had found their way to the walls, meeting with a number of interesting characters. The most interesting, perhaps, of them all is a man, Galbry Runelith, also known as the Hand, who offered the group of you an opportunity to perhaps find some new information about the person you are searching for in exchange for a little bit of assistance. While you initially were not confident in taking this opportunity, that seemingly changed after the promise that it could be achieved without bloodshed and a bit of a wager in which our beep boop friend Girna found herself face to face with what is seemingly the Hand's personal protector, Evral, a relatively large Lavion warrior. The two met in the arena after a bit of discussion between Girna and Kunnskap that resulted in the Kunnskap attempting to and then rescinding a bit of magical protection, and Brory making a rather hefty bet on his ally. Eventually, the two came to blows, and though it was quite a spectacle, with Girna growing in size to become this massive opponent. I don't know a better way to put that. A massive opponent, because I keep wanting to say giant robot. Become a massive opponent. Still, unfortunately, it was not enough to defend or prevent the echoes of the Lavion from eventually putting her down. However, with that fight came the interesting piece of information that despite Girna's fighting style being quite old and nowhere near commonplace, it was one that Evral had seen before and recognized. With that done, the group found themselves in one of the back rooms of the questionable hidden establishment that you found yourselves in. And after some conversation, there was a group decision to assist with what it is that the Hand was requesting in exchange for information. What that is, you don't have too many pieces of information about, except that it is an object that will need to be procured currently in the possession of someone who would like to keep it for themselves, despite the fact that it would be good for the people to have. So as we return, we are still presently inside of this speakeasy, for lack of a better term, with the group of you seated around the table, having just agreed to do this and telling the hand as much. What you would like to do with the rest of the evening is up to you. I assume the group of you are heading back to your respective places of rest for the night. Yes?
Yeah, makes sense.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. So I know Kunnskap is going back to the guild hall lawn, correct?
Yes.
And is anyone joining Kunnskap tonight?
Yerna is.
Great. And the rest of you are going to be heading to the quiet night.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. Is there anything anyone would like to do before we end the night proper?
This is the middle of the night, right?
The sun has set. It's like late evening. It's before like midnight.
Then no, I don't think so.
Kunnskap throws their flag up just in case someone wants a reading of some sort. Not too long, because Kunnskap also needs to sleep, but a couple hours.
Goofies need their beauty sleep.
Would I be able to start the process of making the thing I said I wanted to make?
Sure. What does that look like?
Would I make the crafting check for it?
Yeah. I just if you want to also describe like what you're doing.
After it's done, I'll give a description how it comes up.
Okay, yeah. I meant more like the actions that you are taking as you build it, but like yeah.
Oh, anytime that Rory like comes across like a pile of scrap like on the sidewalk that someone tossed away, he pick up random pieces and start cobbling them together to make the stuff that he needs.
If you want to make that check.
That would be a Tinker's Tools.
Correct. Yes.
Let's see here. Okay, so plus 7, so 14.
Cool. Yeah, and you're gonna spend some time tonight in your room. You have separate rooms, right? Everyone got
Yeah.
their own room. Okay. Yeah. So you're gonna spend some time tonight in your room, just sort of hunched over the like little desk area that's provided. Fitting pieces, taking time to see what's able to kind of connect to what and what pieces. A lot of it is also drawing up schematics, things that you know you're going to need in order to take this semi-broken piece of thing and this piece of thing and make them able to work together. Kunnskap.
I assume I'll need to make more crafting checks the next few days.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Just when you have the opportunity, and like the time and stuff, let me know, and then there will be more. I'll let you roll a check, and we'll talk about what's going on, and we'll go from there. But yeah, it's gonna be a little while to put it together.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. So you put up your flag. I don't know if you and Girna want to discuss as this is going on because I know it's going to take you a bit. You're putting up your flag, setting up your tent again. Are you the first night, if I remember correctly, you also created sort of like a bit of a fog, right?
Yes.
Is that something they're doing again?
Yes, I will also cast my spell for that, which I do believe is just create fog. Yes, fog cloud.
Okay, yeah. And Girna, what are you doing while Kunnskap is doing that?
Yerna will, help out wherever she can help out with setup, and then she'll just ask casual questions like, how long he's been traveling, things like that.
Every time Girna asks a question, Kunnskap answers very like as short as possible. So upon the question of how long they have been traveling, Kunnskap, as they are setting up incense as the fog cloud rolls into the tent and starts spreading outwards, Kunnskap goes, I have been traveling for, what did I say, 6 months? A year? Somewhere around there.
Do you like traveling?
It has its moments. I do not think that I can say that the entire journey has been fruitless or fruitful, but it has given me much insight in how the world works outside of the North.
Depending on if they get customers stay, Girna will pay a lot of attention to like the process of the readings.
Nope, it's gone. So after about 30 minutes or so, the flap of your tent raises as a gentleman walks through. He's on the older side of things. Skin is a bit deep tanned, likely from one of the farming villages surrounding Southreach instead of living in Southreach proper. He's got a long, almost gray, kind of scraggled beard and messed, long, gray, almost white hair with spots of balding. His clothes are relatively plain. And he looks in and he goes, hello?
At this point, Kunnskap is already sitting on the other side of a small, squat, foldable table with the incense around them. And Kunnskap doesn't answer, but just nods to them.
I saw the flag outside, and I was wondering what your fee was. He says as he comes in and sort of lowers the flap behind him.
Kunnskap will look them up and down for a moment, and then kind of put their hand out for them to sit before pushing a bowl to the individual. Kunnskap, noticing the relative destitution of this individual, will take whatever they give rather than a set cost.
So he sits down a little unsteadily, clearly a bit off put from the visual of all of this, but he settles into the seat and reaches into this vest that he's wearing and pulls out a very small, mostly empty coin purse. And he pulls out a single silver piece and drops it into the bowl and then closes the purse back up and puts it away. It's most of what I have, but I need guidance. There is a crossroads that I have come to in the twilight of my life, and I need some clarity.
Kunnskap pulls the bowl away from the visitor, and is, as their hands are moving about the table, the black tar and on the fingertips, just reaching around, moving things around, creating space. under their breath, they are muttering as they continue to move things around and pulling out the bone runes and putting them upon the tables, pulling them out and rolling them around as the golden eyes from the mask peer at the man.
He just sort of sits watching you, kind of curious and concerned, perhaps a bit trepidatious. I don't know how what I need to do for this. I was hoping you would be able to guide me through the process. I've only ever done this once in my youth, but it was how I met my wife, and I'm hoping that this could be another helpful opportunity.
Without breaking eye contact, Kunnskap just says, "Ask your question."
Well, my wife has been gone for some years now. When my children have moved on, grown up, and went off to find their own lives, leaving me to tend my farm myself. In my age, I have begun to slow down as most do, and am considering a change for the last few years of my life. Recently, an individual came and offered to buy my farm from me. And while it and the home that I have beside it have so many memories of my beautiful Daphne and our children, I am finding it more and more difficult to tend the farm and am more and more wistful for the things I have not seen in my life. And the gold that is being offered is enough for me to be able to travel, perhaps not the whole of Ozanti, but some of it. And I was wondering if my fortune would be better were I to stay with my memories and my farm, or to take this gold, give up what was my life, and make the most of what I still have ahead of me.
Kunnskap will suddenly pull all the runes into their hand and using druid craft, the fog that Kunnskap, as well as the incense, seems to swirl around them for a moment before Kunnskap casts them upon the table.
And what say your runes, Kunnskap?
Oh, I rolled a religion check to see if there was any thing that I could garner from it.
Oh, okay. My misunderstanding, because the last time we spoke about it, there was there. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Kunnskap will mostly see vagary with that roll. As if the choice that is being made is either good no matter what happens or bad no matter what happens. That the gods are saying that the decision being made will not affect the outcome of this man's contentment in life. And Kunnskap says that to them.
that is I guess you could call it both promising and disheartening. But I do appreciate the attempt to offer some clarity on what I should do, or what will happen.
Kunnskap will lean forward and say, if it is your desire to see the world, then do it. If it is not, then you stay in your home, enjoy the fruits of the labor that you have put into your home for the past many years. But always remember that whatever decision you make, you must make it with knowledge that you will always feel as though, especially during days that you are not quite as happy with your decision, whether or not the other decision would have been better. Find contentment in whatever decision you make, and you cannot go wrong.
He sits and he thinks about it for a moment. Thank you. That is good insight, and I appreciate it greatly. Perhaps one day we will run into each other again, and I will have you offer another reading.
Kunnskap nods and says, I would be interested in whatever decision you make. If you wish to come and visit me again, just to let me know. I am Kunnskap Soker, and you are?
I'm Gary.
Gary. Gary,
Ha-
the gods watch over you, as they do everyone.
Will you be here for a while? Are you going anywhere in particular that I could perhaps find you if I do take this offer and go?
I do not see any possibility of me, if I am still in this area, to be hard to find.
Thank you again. I will search you out and share with you my decision.
And Kunnskap, with a flourish of the hand that also casts Druidcraft, the tent flap opens for them to leave.
He gets up and almost awkwardly sort of like bows his head a bit before he leaves.
Yarna has been sitting only as still as a beep boop can be still, just very respectfully, not interrupting any of this. But when the gentleman leaves, she leans forward and kind of peers at the setup. What are the runes that are on the bones? Do they mean anything in particular?
Each one has their own meaning. This one, and Kunnskap holds up a symbol that looks like a elongated F, can foretell the loss or the gain of wealth, or trouble coming from wealth, for example.
Do you ever find them difficult to read?
Sometimes the gods do not allow me to see anything with the runes, which in this case I garnered to be an answer in and of itself. It did not seem to me that either decision would make this individual particularly happy or depressed. And in that was a reason why I told them that contentment is the purpose of this decision. Either way, they need to find enjoyment in what they have.
Is this a common skill where you are from?
Not common, but easily found.
They are very interesting. These runes, they are of your people?
They are of the world, as far as we are concerned. We just use them differently than, say, the ones that are upon your person.
I find it all very curious and fascinating. It is the first time I've seen runes outside of myself.
You will find runes of different types as you travel the world. One of the main purposes of our journey is to find new runes. These are, as far as we are aware, incomplete. There are some that are still yet to be found.
Then are the runes that I have known to you?
I do believe that is an answer for the GM to give.
Mhm. Well, what runes has Kunnskap seen from Girnar?
She handed him a note last session with the runes that she has written down on them.
So, looking at, so you gave Kunnskap the letter, the note with your runes when?
When we were at the quiet night after he inspected the rooms for ghostly presences.
So this is the first opportunity that Kunnskap has really had to look at this note that Girna had written out, and looking it over, you see 4 different runes. 2 of which are runes that often are used to refer to the concept of passion, but in different contexts. One is like a fiery, burning passion or resolve. The other is like a angry, sort of rumbling storm of emotion, just sort of coming together. Uh, they also sometimes can be used to refer to their specific elements of fire and storm. Another one is one that you recognize as being the cold, but is also very often for your people used to refer to home for obvious reasons. Uh, the last one is one you haven't really seen very often, as your people do have a number of runes that are considered lost runes, or just runes that don't often see common use. But it's sort of this almost abstract concept of weightlessness, of floating or flowing through existence. It as you ponder back on the things you've learned of this rune, it's almost like how one would view a cloud, just sort of coasting through the world.
So I know 3 of these runes.
Well, there are 4. You know the 4 of them, but 2 of them are sometimes can share meanings.
Kunnskap will ponder this for a moment before explaining that to Girna, each one giving as much information that Kunnskap has.
Very much like to travel north at some point. And learn more about these and the ways of your people?
Our people are a culture of gaining knowledge. We are not ones who just free flow our understanding of the word, but of the world, but instead are people that increasingly ponders the philosophy of questions. If you have questions, I will answer them.
So, do your people use any of the runes in the way that I do?
In terms of your how, like, protection, is that what you mean?
Yes, for effects in combat.
On the same piece of paper with a piece of charcoal, Kunnskap will draw out the rune that they use for casting what is known as Armor of Faith, which actually is very similar to the ice rune that also means home. When I put this upon your back before you went into combat, it would increase your own protective qualities. Whenever I cast my own attacks, they are made through runes, yes.
Interesting. Given me much to ponder.
I think it is time for us to sleep before too much later, or at least myself.
I will sit by the entrance.
Kunnskap, like a feline, will curl up on a rolled out bed of sorts and promptly fall asleep. They do not remove any of their robes or their mask as they do this.
Yurna will just position herself by the door so she can keep an eye on things while she
Oh.
is in it.
Oh, and removes the flag from the front.
All right. Is there anything that anyone else wants to do before we wrap the night? Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, what's up?
Aksha's going to when they go back to the inn, he's gonna curl up by the fireplace or wherever that is in the common room and just sit and read his mentor's journal and see if he can glean anything more from it. Maybe he feels like he missed something.
And you can roll me an investigation if you'd like. Ooh. Okay, so what is that in total? A 22?
Yep, 22.
Great. So, yeah, actually, you're going to spend the majority of your evening sort of just curled by the fire, and occasionally you hear like Klaus hassling or bothering one of the other patrons at the bar, or particularly rowdy conversation. But other than that, there's very few distractions. But peering through this at first, it's a mixture of familiar. You've read a lot of this before, but also some of it continues to just be so far beyond your current grasp because parts of it are these just complex, arcane, like almost mathematical equations and breakdowns of philosophy behind manipulating different parts of the arcane fabric that makes up reality and things like that. However, not long before you turn in, um, you find that there is a strange thing that seems to happen every few pages where a word or two seem to be written strangely. It's not that it's not in your mentor's handwriting, but there's strange curvature and small additions to some of these letters that is not something that he regularly added to anything else. The way that this particular word is written is not the same way it's written the other 100 times that it's been written throughout this journal. There's something specifically unique about it. And while you can't necessarily discern why that is, it's clear that there is some kind of intent here in at least pieces of what he's written that may differ from the base presentation.
Okay. Actually, we'll take note of this and keep trying to figure it out.
And Toby, I know you said you wanted to do something as well.
So even though Toby's room is not one of the spoopy rooms, which was checked out earlier, Toby's had a decent amount of drinks and wants to investigate his own room for anyone that looks anything remotely like Girna, because he's still convinced that Girna is a ghost.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to roll for it. So Toby, you're gonna spend let's say the better part of half an hour just sort of pick up the bed
Yes.
and moving all of the dresser and the desk and carefully lifting up the wash basin to make sure there's nothing skulking beneath it. You sort of like kick open the chest in the corner, not wanting to be caught face to face with the ghost if it does happen to be inside. This, but no matter how meticulously you search, there's nothing that looks at all like Girna in this room.
Toby has also sniffed everything.
There are a lot of different smells that Toby picks up. None are suspicious, but some are certainly unpleasant.
Expected.
There.
So at the conclusion of this, he's going to, as best as he can, put the bed back together
Sure.
and swap out his fishing attire, his daily attire, and put on his Ozanti nightcap because he's got a little bit of a headache going on from all the drinks. He's had about, I think, 6 drinks in the last day, so it's getting to him. And he's gonna pull that down over his eyes a little bit and hit the hay. Call it an early night.
Sure. Do me a favor, just roll me a d20.
You got it.
Awesome.
That'd be a 13.
Okay. So
Lucky number 13.
you all fall asleep. And as the morning comes, Girna and Kunnskap would be the first to awaken. But not long after that, the rest of you do the same. It is a fairly warm day on the 20th of Green Spring, year 962, with only a few clouds sort of slowly traveling through the sky towards the southwest on a soft wind that seems to call towards the sea. So, Kunnskap, what would you guys like to do?
As far as I'm aware, we just head to the inn where the rest of our friends are.
Sure, absolutely. And is there anything that the three of you would like to do in the interim between waking up and waiting for your companions to arrive?
The Kunnskap will also, before they are fully done, cast good berries for the day. Actually, they would have done it before they went to sleep.
Okay. What would that look like for Girno who's there?
So before Kunnskap fell asleep, it would be their last spell slot for the day.
Sure.
Kunnskap's casts these runes in the air above the ground, even putting a few into the dirt themselves as a small sprig of this plant grows from it, and Kunnskap starts to pluck the berries and put them in a bag before going to sleep.
Cool.
Then upon awaking, pops one in their mouth.
Rory, Girna, Aksha, is there anything that y'all would like to do?
Rory would probably come down to the table and what time would it be that he woke up?
Let's say like 8:30.
How long? What time did the guard say that he'd meet up with us?
I don't believe he gave a time. He just said that he'd be there in the morning.
Okay. I'll order some food and I want to start identifying the potions that we got from that kind salesman.
Sure, give me a moment and we'll get to that. That you got at an amazing discount. Okay, so while that's happening, Aksha, Toby, what would y'all like to do?
I'm gonna come down last because Toby, upon waking up, is going to double check that nothing has moved overnight.
Sure. So the first thing you realize as you wake up, still with the nightcap kind of pulled over your eyes, is that your headache has completely gone. You feel incredibly well rested, almost as though you had slept for an entire 24-hour period. In fact, there's a moment where you have to kind of stop and go, wait, okay, I definitely didn't sleep for an entire day. There's no way they would have let me, but it definitely feels like I have. You feel incredibly, completely refreshed and ready to face the day. You have 10 temporary hit points. And yeah, and then you look around the room and nothing seems to have moved or been changed or been touched. There's a moment where you're like, wait a second, that chest is crooked, before remembering how you sort of kicked it the night before, and we're like, right, yeah,
Oh.
that's clearly why.
Oh, I did that.
No mimics here.
So after that, Toby would head downstairs and probably meet Rory and similarly order food.
Aksha?
Aksha would have, after cleaning the book, went to sleep. Woke up relatively early to kind of preen and clean his scales, and then go downstairs to breakfast and say, oh, because he'd see Rory first. Good morning, Rory.
Good morning.
So,
Sleep well?
As so, I would be there last, and joining both of you, I would come down and sit and be like, "Hello, friends. Good morning.
Good morning.
Any ghosts last night?"
None that Aksha has seen. No.
Thankfully, none.
Toby did not have a ghost either.
Good to hear.
Disappointing.
So, as you kind of flag down Pavush. He comes over, and you all, as you settle into your seats, see that the quiet night is much like the name, relatively calm today. There's a few sort of scattered voices broken out with the occasional like cry from Klaus, but otherwise very little. Pavush comes over and he goes, had a good night's sleep?
Yeah, beds are very nice here.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So looking for some breakfast today?
Yes.
Where are your
That-
friends? I know there were more of you before.
They should be coming here shortly, I believe.
Well, we got two options for breakfast today. Got some breakfast skins or porridge bread bowl.
Go
Both
for the skins.
pretty good options. Hmm?
I'll go for the skins.
One order skins.
Toby will have one of each.
Oh, gotta keep that belly nice and full.
Yes, yes. Food.
Sure, we'll have skins.
Good,
Yes.
good. And for your friends, would you like something for them as well?
They'll probably say when they get here.
All right, wonderful. I'll be right back with your food. He walks off. Rory, do you want to tell us what it looks like when you're trying to identify these potion
Yeah.
bottles?
He's gonna take out his little device that he uses to look for magic, and after opening it a bit, starts to thoroughly examine the 3 remaining bottles that they have.
Sure.
So identify as a ritual.
Yeah. Give me but a moment. All right. So you hold the thing up like to your eye, or like how do you?
Yeah, it has different lenses for. You know how in like an eye doctors have those different like blades of lenses that go back and
Mhm.
it has multiple of those to look at different aspects of the magic that is radiating off of it.
Awesome. Okay. So you have the gold potion, a green
the
one.
the gold square bottle, the
Uh-huh.
pink wolf head bottle, and the green bottle. The blue one, oxygenated.
Yes. So which one would you like to look at first?
Let's go with the gold one.
Sure. So you grab the gold one, and the two of you see Rory sort of sits there and is occasionally tapping, and different like little lenses slide down or up, and over a bit, you start to sort of glean bits of pieces that you can put together over time. Eventually, you are relatively confident after about 10 or so minutes of exactly what this is. This is a potion of wild instability. When you drink it, over the next 24 hours, all spells that you cast become unstable. Mechanically, what that would mean is you would be rolling on the wild magic list anytime that you cast a spell.
Okay, then. That is.
More likely than not, whoever made this particular potion either had no idea what they were doing and was just like, put this in, put this in, put this in. Cool, that's a potion. Let's sell it. Or knew exactly what they were doing with very specific reasons.
Concerning, but glad we know what it does.
Do you share that information with Toby
Oh,
and Aksha.
Toby is like slouched over the table, like staring at Rory as he's doing this, like wide-eyed in fascination because he's never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, Aksha's
going
also just tipping his head and just, what is he doing? What is this? What's
I'm going to put
happening?
it in the middle of the table. If you drink that and cast magic over the next day, weird stuff's going to happen.
Oh, Aksha did not want that.
Toby's gonna say nothing and just like kind of slowly push it back towards Rory.
I guess he'll go looking at the pink wolf head bottle.
Sure. And it's gonna take you a little bit, obviously, as it did with the first one. And in the meanwhile, after about 3 or 4 minutes, Pavlish returns with this just a couple of these long wooden almost platters, and he puts them down in front of each of you, and on them are a number of potato skins that have kind of had the meat of the potato pulled out, mashed, along with cheese and egg and probably some other spices or whatever else is on hand. And there's about 5 of them on each of your platters. And then he puts down this sort of hard bread bowl that has had the center scooped out and has been filled with porridge. And he goes, "There you go. We can settle up whenever y'all are done. I'm not worried about you skipping out on me. So take your time, enjoy, and Klaus sends his regards." Walking Dead. Yep.
Thank you. He's going to start eating a little bit while going through the motions of looking at the bottom.
Sure. And I mean, they're kind of what you'd expect from this side of South Reach. They're not the most incredibly nuanced pieces of food or flavors, but there's a lot of sort of garlic and there's a touch of like pepper to them as well, and just sort of all mashed together with the egg and the cheese and the potato itself, with slightly overcooked potato skin, so it's a little hard almost.
It's filling.
And I know Toby, you said
Yeah.
you're like zoned in on this.
Yeah, so like the porridge is like going to be neglected for now, but the skins are going to be one arm picking up a skin, kind of like putting it in the mouth, the eyes still locked on these potions, and Rory like, what is happening here?
And Aksha, what about you?
Aksha's gonna eat lightly and take out his mentor's book again and kind of just skim it, look over at Rory, eat some food, and then continue skimming the book.
Sure. Okay, so Rory, you said you're doing the pink wolf head potion, right?
Yes.
Great. So again, you go through a bunch of different lenses as you're picking out little pieces of arcane information here or there to sort of build the larger picture. Eventually, you learn that this is a potion of an aura of warmth. When you drink it, the person who imbibes it becomes warm to the touch. Not hot enough to damage anyone or hurt anyone if they touch them, but significantly warmer than they would generally be. And it lasts for about 24 hours. Mechanically, the way this would work is if you were in extreme cold situations, they would not be bothered by it. It also would give them a resistance to any form of cold damage.
This potion will keep you warm for a day, and just if you're not used to cold weather, this should deal with that. He puts it in the middle of the table.
Sure. And the green one, if I remember correctly, Kunnskap has.
He gave them to me, I believe.
Did they?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
They did
Okay.
while I was detecting magic on them to see the uh, magic schools.
Okay, cool. So then you'll get started on the last one. And as you're sort of focused, hunched over it a bit, Girna and Kunnskap, you arrive at the Quiet Night.
Kunnskap will just nod to each of them in turn and sit down before kind of just zoning out as if thinking deeply on something.
And not a moment or two after you guys have grabbed your seats, does Pavush come back over and go, I knew you'd be back. Breakfast, anyone? He's just pointing back between Kunnskap and Girna.
I'm fine, thank you.
Eventually, you're gonna have to eat.
We ate on our way here.
And Toby just mumbles a little bit like, ghosts do not eat.
That's very true. Are you sure you didn't stay in one of the specialty rooms last night?
No ghosts. Toby checked.
Ah. All right, well, if you need anything else, let me know and I'll be back there. No, we won't! Where else am I gonna go? As he walks off, Klaus kind of flaps over and lands in front of Kunnskap.
Kunnskap will cast Speak with Animals. I can cast as a ritual.
I believe so, yes.
But that doesn't take a spell slot, right?
No, it does not.
Yeah, I'll spend the 10 minutes while everyone's eating to cast it ritualistically.
Sure. And as you're laying out your runes and stuff to do so, occasionally Klaus will kind of like peck at them and just kind of like at you.
Kunnskap will not berate Klaus for this and just moves it back to where it needs to be.
In the meantime, Rory, you finally have pieced enough together to be able to tell that this green like bottle is a potion of true name.
Potion of what?
True name.
True name.
When you drink it, a person who you are thinking about, you have their full name revealed to you. However, the same goes in the opposite direction, where they learn your full name. But what's really interesting about this potion isn't the strange, almost random effect of it. What's strange is that while the magic is very clearly divination magic and recognizable as such, it looks different. It looks impulsively, you almost want to use the word foreign. It doesn't seem like the way that you've seen most arcane energies look for anything you've looked at, whether it be natural magics or something based on cursite or any other sort of manipulated essence. This looks just different, and it's you can't place why or how, but it's very clearly distinct and unique.
This one, if you drink it and think of someone, you'll know what their name is and they'll know what your name is.
Perhaps we could use it to find this investor that we do not know who they are.
Toby kind of pushes it back toward Brewery again. And it's like, Toby finds this one confusing.
That's on the table if we want to do it then. Oh yeah, and he'll push over the other two vials. This pink one will help someone resist cold weather, and this one it'll make magic do some weird stuff. If either you two, no point at Haksha and Kunnskap, want to have this one. I'm not much of a conventional spellcaster, so this wouldn't benefit me too much.
Haksha will pass, but thank you.
Yes, the gods are fickle enough without me having to also worry about my own powers being somehow changed.
Perhaps we can slip it into an enemy's drink at some point.
All right, I'll hold on to it for the time being, I guess. Do we want to try using the potion to find out the investor's name?
Any of you want to do that, but I do not know if such an item would I do not know if such an item would work if I tried to drink it. I don't really drink.
There. It's worth a shot.
It would be interesting if someone like Toby, I do not even think that Toby has a surname.
No, Toby is just Toby. One name.
I think that
Would it cause harm for this person to know Toby?
we don't know. It's part of the question. I don't think any harm would come to you specifically, because any direction they would have would also bring them to us. However, I don't think that the name is associated with anyone. I think that if you drink it, they will just get the name Toby without any designation of who you are. It's just a name. We are specifically thinking of someone specifically, and therefore would gain more knowledge than they have.
So Toby's going to sit there and ponder this for a minute in a way that only he can. And he's going to come back and look over at Kunnskap and say to them, this makes sense to Toby. Points at Kunnskap. Many secrets. Points at Aksha. Too little. Points at Brory. Too much respect. Points at Girna. Does not drink.
I'm comfortable drinking it if you're not comfortable with this kind of magic.
Toby will do it for the good of the mission, for the good of the group.
I'll slide it over to Toby then.
So at just about this moment, two things happen. The first is Kunnskap, you finish your ritual. The second is you are collectively sort of interrupted by the sound of a bunch of scrolls hitting the table. Standing over them is a gentleman that you are all coming to slowly become quite familiar with. Uh, except instead of the plate mail and longsword and giant shield that he tends to wield, instead, Valder Silverson is wrapped in a cloak that he has pulled just a bit over like the side of his face facing towards the majority of the people here. Uh, although how good of a job that does of obscuring someone who is truly built like an ox is, you know, between that and the tusks, it's still pretty clearly Valder. He looks back and forth over the group of you and he goes, "Well, it's good to know the party's here."
Toby looks up at him and incredibly loudly goes, "Good morning, Valder Silverson."
I'm so glad that it's the group of you that I had to rely on for this. I'm reminded of our meeting yesterday and how we spoke of subtlety and how we were trying to keep quiet that we are working together on this. I do deeply appreciate your words of greeting. Thank you. And how are you today?
As well as we can be.
Klaus looks over at you, Kunnskap, and goes, "He's big."
He is indeed. He is a large man. Did you wish to speak to me about something?
Hello.
Hello, Klaus.
Do you have pie?
Not today. No, I
Oh,
do
no pie. I get pie anyway.
Next
We're gonna look
time I'm
over.
out, if this is really what Kunnskap spent 10 minutes just to cast, Kunnskap will say, "I will get you pie if I come across any more pie."
And he does this little like happy bird hop, where he just sort of hops back and forth, and like flaps his wings a bit. Klaus is clearly very pleased with this. He said, "Pie, pie, pie."
Is there anything else that you wish to talk to me about?
No.
Wonderful. Klaus, next time, be a little bit less pushy if this is all that you wish to talk about. I thought you wanted to speak to me of something important.
Friend important.
Friends are very important, and Kunnskap will reach out and pet the head of Klaus. Did you go visit my compatriots?
Not yet.
Make sure you tell them that Kunnskap sent you.
Okay, friends.
Many
Kunnskap.
friends, yes.
Kunnskap Silker. Yuna pushes over a gold. What's it, bird?
You may, if you wish, use this to get. I think it's probably worth more than just one pie, perhaps two. You may use it to get a pie you wish. Make sure you give it to a pie maker before taking the pie.
So he looks down at it and then back up and then he pecks it. For pie!
Yes, you take this, bring it to someone who makes pie, and give them this, and then take the pie.
Trade like fork!
Yes.
Pie! And he like grabs it and he goes to flap away, like fly off. And the entire time, Valder is just sort of standing there watching. So I assume when you're speaking to animals, usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're conversing in their language.
So there's a lot of croaking and cawing from Kunnskap, yes.
Right, and so Valder is just standing there, just reevaluating all of his life choices as he watches you and by proxy the rest of the group sort of ignore him to have a bit of a conversation with a bird. Oh, all right. All right.
We were teaching the bird not to steal.
Well, the opposite of stealing, buying. But
What?
I am attempting to teach the bird the ethics of trade.
Oh, sweet fuck. All right. Well, did it go well?
We will see.
Oh, perfect. That's great. Absolutely great. And he pushes off the hood, and his hair is still sort of pulled back in that same sort of.
You seem
lazy
incredulous
ponytail.
at this idea.
Well, it's not every day someone tries to teach a bird about how buying and selling goes. You'll forgive me if it's a bit fucking weird.
Just the reduction of tension in this area. The two businesses are having a bit of a rivalry because of these issues.
Is
I
that
took
what
it
it
upon
is?
myself. Yes.
The bird's been the one stealing the pies.
I said there's was tension. I never said any such thing.
Well, no, but you understand that. That's true, she did. You do understand that this isn't the first time that the city guard has heard about tensions rising between these two places and the suggestion that perhaps the bird was the one stealing the pies and how perhaps we collectively thought that was absolutely batshit ridiculous.
I guess that goes to show how good you are at your job.
I'm gonna ignore that comment for the time being. But watch yourself.
Kunnskap will look at these scrolls gathered in front of them as they are putting away the runes and says, "So, what have you come to us with?"
Well, before I answer that, I would like everybody to roll me a perception check real quick. And let me know what you get.
That is a 17.
Aksha gets 13.
And Toby, so it's a D20, and then you'll add your wisdom bonus, and if you're trained in, if proficient in perception, you'll add +2.
Yeah, I just forgot my plus on the roll. That's why I was looking up. So it's a 17.
Okay, and Kunnskap, what did you get?
17.
Okay, so as Valder sort of settles into a seat beside the group of you, and everyone else is waxing with him, the two of you, Toby and Kunnskap, notice off near the fireplace, is a single solitary figure, sort of sitting with their hood up and watching, fairly pointedly, the group of you. It's not hard to recognize this individual, as it's someone who you came across relatively recently, your new leprechaun friend from the walls, who it's not incredibly strange to assume is keeping an eye on you, considering the interaction that you last had with the hand.
Kunnskap will take note of this, but does not react in any way.
Similarly, Toby can smell her, because that's probably the best way that he would notice something like this.
Heck yeah.
And will turn his head and look, but That's it. It's kind of like he would look and stare.
So he like stares at her.
Yeah, I don't know what the angle would be, but like unless she's like right directly in front of him, he would like turn
He'd
his
have
head.
to like turn to the side. Yeah.
Yeah, so he would like turn and like stare.
As soon as Kunnskap notices this, Kunnskap will turn to Toby and say, does your people ever talk to animals just to distract them from looking obviously over in a direction?
I do not think so. No.
Not even members of the Ursine race, the bears of your area?
Toby does not know what you mean by this.
So you are an Ursine.
Yes.
You are a bear person, for lack of better terminology. I was wondering if you spoke or worked with bears of the more four-legged variety in your area of control.
Is this entirely relevant to what we're discussing right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was distracted for a moment. And with the distraction done, Kunnskap will turn their head too.
Well done. Well done. Awesome. There's like half a moment where Valder's head turns in that direction, but it becomes very immediately clear it's not pointed in any way. He's just exasperated and completely misses the fact that she's over there. All right, so let's have us a conversation. And he takes the scrolls and he starts unfurling them, and together they lay out the names and some basic information about some of the people who have gone missing. If you will direct your attention over to, I think I can just pop it open for all of you guys. So give me a moment. If I do this,
Oh, yep.
yeah,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah.
So, and he goes through. We're obviously not going to spend too much time going through all of these different names. You can take a picture of it if you want. You can write it down. You'll always have access to it through the journal tab. It should be there available for all of you whenever you'd like. But so he unfurls the scrolls and he goes, all right, so I can't tell you if this is a comprehensive list or not, because obviously there's no way for me to know if this is everyone, which I guess is both the most troubling and most unfortunate part of this. But these are the names that I have been able to discern as most likely being involved with whatever it is that's been going on here.
Kieran's gonna pull out the notebook that she picked up and start copying down the information.
It started about 15 months or so ago. That's as far back as I've been able to figure out. And for a while it was just about every 2 months. Although again, a lot of this is done in retrospect. It really wasn't until about 5 months ago that I started putting these pieces together. So I don't know how many more there are who might have needed to be on this list, or even maybe some of these are not related because there's very little to go on. But I've managed to at least cut it down to people who seem to be young adults, and no one over the age of. Well, it's hard to give an exact number, as not everyone ages the same, but everyone who is on this list meets this criteria of someone who has disappeared, isn't a full, is still relatively young, and
They all seem to be in good shape, healthy.
as far as I can tell, there was one of them. I forget. I think it was Cilia, who was a bit on the rounder side, but I wouldn't say there's anything other than that to assume they're unhealthy or. otherwise had any issues. The last one that I've been able to uh, put on this list for what feels to me like confidently was involved in this was about a month ago. But again, almost all of them you will notice as we go through it are people who either weren't planning to stay long or could very easily have just left the city, which is why a lot of, well, all of my superiors have told me not to worry so much about it. There's just not enough to go on for most of it. And the amount of time and footwork and energy that I would have to put in is not something we can afford right now. Especially with, all of the growing animosity with the things happening over in the West.
Are these in chronological order upon their disappearance?
As far as I can tell, they are, yeah.
I do notice a pattern.
Please.
Up until the last two, all of these had the more human physiology: elven, human, stoutling, halfling. It wasn't until Cilia, who of course still had human blood, that they begin to change who they were taking. And it seems it was only the last two, Tevra and Cirrus, who were not following the same pattern.
It's something I've thought about before, but I don't know. It might be relevant. Again, I haven't had the time to really, or opportunity to really look into it, but you might be right. I sort of wrote off Sirius because how often do you see a Choira around here? It's sort of a bit of a rare occurrence. They don't leave what's it called, Gallus very often, but you might be right. It's definitely something to consider.
The age range suggests some kind of trafficking, perhaps? Young, able bodied individuals?
It's entirely possible. Yeah.
Gives us a lot of information to work with.
Just keep logs of everything that you do so that we can go over it. There will be times where, despite this unfortunate occurrence of loud greetings, there will be times we can't just sit down and have this discussion. So, on occasion, perhaps, he leans in a bit, it would make sense to leave a letter with Annie, and she'll make sure it gets to the right hands if we need to share information.
This is acceptable.
All right. I'm very hopeful that you'll be able to make this happen. Be able to help me figure this out. Which reminds me, and he reaches into his cloak and he pulls out sort of a parcel, unties it, and he opens it, pulls out like a folder almost, right? It made of this like quickly stitched together leather, and out of it he pulls a number of what look like official documents, and he passes them across the table, sort of splayed out over each other to the group of you. And he goes, "Take these. As we've discussed, they will be all that you need, as long as you can keep your use of the arcane reasonable and safe. These will prevent you from having to worry about any major hassles from any other gauntlets in the town, in the city.
Thank you. That is much appreciated.
Just don't flash it unless you have to, because obviously I could get in a lot of trouble for this, and we could all end up in prison if this goes poorly.
We will endeavor to keep our movements as quiet as possible, yes.
I appreciate that. Do you have any leads or any ideas on where you're planning to go next?
We have a couple of leads, the first one being a possible lead in the, what was it, the shelter. We found, I don't know who has the coin at this point. We found this in one of the abodes.
You have it, actually. It was either you or Toby, I forget which one.
Yeah. So just as quick in it, slides the coin on the table for him to see.
From the Temple of Ozanti, huh?
Yes, it was strange as the end of it was found in the room of, I believe it was Moscow.
Yeah, Lena's son.
Yes. Who had a place to stay, as well as at least some monetary means. Why he would keep something around is a little bit strange.
That's pretty odd. He was staying by the warmer side, right?
Yeah, that's where his room was.
Uh,
We found it.
Strange. Alright, so is that your plan then, to go check out the temple?
Yes.
Alright. Is there anything else you've uncovered or any other thoughts?
We haven't uncovered much else, no. But I think this is a lead that we can definitely follow through with.
Now that we have this list, there's a lot more information for us to use in our poking about.
Alright. Well, I don't want to stay too long, lest more people show up and become aware of what's happening here. Here's what I'd like to do. Every morning, I will be checking in with Annie, and I would request that throughout the day you do the same. That way, if there's any information, we can share it back and forth. I'd like updates from you daily, so if you could drop something off with her each night before the day's over, that way when I go see her in the mornings for my normal rounds, we can be sure something will be waiting for me, and if it's not, I'll know that something's going on.
I will not promise that we will be able to write every day, but if we skip a day, you can be assured that we will leave something in the next day or two.
Alright. Just try to be careful with what feathers you ruffle, if any. It's a busy week coming up.
It is?
Well, yes, it's the week leading up to Prosperity Day.
I must confess, I do not know much about this Prosperity Day.
It's a celebration of, well, mostly here in Southreach, but it's throughout most of the major cities in Lysantis, where we celebrate the good health and luck and benefits that came from having, you know, the blessings of Balus.
I see.
It's kind of a big deal.
Then I look forward to the festivities.
Mhm. Hopefully, we can have this resolved by then. Though it's a lot to do, and I understand if not. But rest assured, this is not the week to be causing too many issues. If you understand what I mean.
Yes, it is noted.
Good. Now, is there anything else we need to go over before I take my leave?
Not yet.
I sincerely hope to hear from you again soon.
They will.
He pulls his hood back up. Sort of slides his chair back and leaves.
Kunnskap will watch them leave before getting up and walking over to the leprechaun and sitting down in front of her.
And Toby will follow.
Oh, look, friends.
How are you today?
Better than I was a couple minutes ago.
Oh,
Ah.
why is that?
Well, it's not every day that part of the gauntlet comes in and sits down and makes himself at home. But considering how well that conversation seemed to have went, I'm feeling a lot less nervous, and I'm pretty sure that the hand's going to feel the same way.
It is hard to try to find missing persons without some sort of legal connection.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. That's exactly why I was here. I'm just making sure everything stays on the up and up. Considering the conversation from last night, it would be a real shame if you would pass any of that information on. But now I can go back and tell our wonderful benefactor that there's nothing to worry about. So when you show up tonight, well, he will feel significantly more comfortable giving you the details you need.
I have no need to exchange information from one side to the other. I will let you know that my work with, or our work with the law will not be treated as information to the hand.
Not what we're looking for.
And the other way around will not occur either.
As long as the things you're doing for us and the things you're doing for them don't end up at odds, there's no need for any of that.
Understood. And with that, Kunnskap will stand up and go back to the other table.
As you go to walk away, she kind of shouts out, "You should try the skins. They're real good."
Toby, who is still there, about to get up himself, will look and be like, "They are. Thank you for not running this time."
Thank you for not crushing me.
Toby is gonna give her a kind of a hard pat on the shoulder.
Great. Maybe next time we can hold hands again.
Toby is incredibly puzzled by that comment.
She just settles in.
So, I say that we follow up on this temple. And then tonight we return to the hand for our assignment.
That seems like a solid plan. Our friend over there is not causing any troubles?
Not yet, but the issue with being pulled in two different directions, especially if one already knows that we are connected with the other, I wouldn't be surprised if the hand attempts to use this later on. But you never know. Perhaps as honor bound as he says he is, he will not attempt to exasperate our friendships with both sides.
I do not think that our connection with what's his name again?
Valder?
Thank you. With Valder, has anything that would benefit the hand at the moment. It is simply missing persons.
We shall see. Kunnskap is going to watch everyone finish their meal before getting up and heading outside.
Before Kunnskap goes to leave, Toby's going to ask, should Toby still drink the potion?
I think we have enough to do today. Let's wait on that.
Okay.
All right.
Was reading the list of people when they went over and talked to our little friend. And as they're leaving, he'll note that, yes, I think this temple is a good idea because one of these other people on the list supposedly stayed there. Belin Gillish? Yes. So it's a connection.
That's good. You can do two birds with one stone.
All right. So if everyone's ready to go, I assume you stop over at the bar top and settle up your debts with Pavush. It's 5 copper for each for the skins, and another 2 for the bread bowl. And with that, you begin your relatively long walk to the civic district to visit the temple. It's a scenic route, if nothing else, one that you at this point have walked a number of times as you circle around the Dominestica and make your way up. Unfortunately, you can't take the shortcut as it would take you through the garrison, which you do not have access to.
See if Alder can give us some kind of permission to go through there next time.
But, it takes you past the ornate gardens of the Dominestica and through the lower quarter, which is perhaps less pleasant to make your way through, and then cutting up, again, all familiar. It's a little over like an hour and a half, 45-minute walk. It's a long process, and occasionally as you walk through the city, you'll see people trying to push their wares here and there, the occasional beggar, and all things that you kind of expect to see, especially in a city of this size. Eventually, you arrive at what is fairly clearly the temple. It's a relatively large building, similar in size to other temples that fill the district. Ivory stonework seemingly carved out with a turquoise shingled angled roof, and carved onto each of the 2 large wooden doors in front of you are this symbol that at least one of you, but everyone but Toby, can make me a religion check to see if you recognize it, although it's very clear what it is. What do we got?
6, 10.
Gear
17.
7.
Okay, so actually, you also recognize the symbol. It's a sort of pipe fashioned from a horn with smoke rolling over the sides of it and flowing down almost like a waterfall. This is the symbol of Ozanti, often referred to. The two of you would know, often referred to as the Lady of Peace or the White Lamb. Uh, there are a lot of people walking by, going into any number of the temples, including this one, and the doors obviously are propped slightly open at an angle, as they're far larger than anyone would need in order to make their way through, barring some kind of massive person like a giant Girna.
Do we see any priests in this area?
Not outside, no.
Then Kunnskap will continue inside.
I will follow.
Yep.
Oh,
Same.
Sure. Stepping inside, you find yourselves surrounded by the peaceful, calm, and steady sound of rushing water. A pleasant place, with sort of a pleasant white noise stemming from slits that line the walls of this place. Water flowing out of them and down across the walls into small ponds that have rivulets that lead to a more centered river that sits beneath what seems like some kind of clear, maybe glass flooring or some other protected clear paneling, which slowly flows to the far end underneath an altar and presumably filters back in, creating this infinite and indefinite loop of the ever present sound. Layered over that sound are other sounds of scattered conversations and some sounds of prayer, sort of muddled as they're far away at the altars, knelt before a large statue. It's hard to discern too much of the statue except for its black painted flowing hair and the clear like woolen cloak draped over its shoulders, though you do occasionally catch wisps of smoke sort of rolling off the sides as though pouring from the carved hair. There's the smell of incense and sort of filling the place, along with that smell of sort of fresh running water. Looking around, you do see a few members of clergy who are relatively easy to distinguish from each other by the woolen cloaks that they wear and the small pipe symbol that they have around their neck. So you look around, and like I said, you see these things, and after a few moments, you are approached by by one of these people with a woolen cloak worn over sort of a very simple robe. Um, he has like ivory skin and bright green almond-shaped eyes that sort of sparkle a bit. This is a Qualinesti high elf. He has like sort of medium length swept back silver hair and is very tall at about 6.5 feet. And he smiles at the group of you and he goes, "Welcome. Welcome to the Temple of Ozanti."
You. It is lovely.
That is so kind of you to say. Is there anything that I can help you with today? If you'd like, there are altars for prayer, and our clergy can assist you if you need. We have a few of our priests who would be happy to aid in any personal disputes that need to be resolved, or if you're looking for restful blessings, we can help with that as well. Unfortunately, all of our beds are filled up for the next few days, so we cannot offer any immediate overnight shelter, but you are welcome to rest here for a while if you are weary.
That is all very kind. We were actually hoping to ask a few questions. Um, we are trying to help a woman named Lena find her son.
Oh, all right. Well, am happy to help however I can, and if not, I will happily find someone who can assist. I'm sure I can make a few moments if you would like to join me over here, away from most, as this does seem something quite troubling.
Thank you.
And he leads the group of you over to a series of pews that are kind of on the side, away from the majority of the people who are here at the temple. And he goes, "Please sit."
Mirna will sit.
I will take a seat if I fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kunnskap is generally distracted by the inside of this building and is moving towards this place that the priest is motioning towards, but is doing it in very serpentine fashion, trying to go to every like altar and wall that exists between there and there.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Most of the altars have a small version of the statue that you all noticed in the back. Although it doesn't seem to be painted, this is more of just a carving. It seems like it's this relatively young woman with her head down, long flowing hair that seems stylized into a waterfall, and a single horn that curves from the left side of her forehead down to about her jaw. Um, how much does Kunnskap's people know about the more popular gods of the region?
I would assume pretty well, as they would assume that the what they would consider usurper gods
Sure.
would be the most direct connection between why their gods are no longer as accessible, and that there must be answers between what were the old gods and the new.
Okay. So what I'm gonna have you do is everyone's gonna roll me one more religion check. Brory, you're gonna have disadvantage.
Boy.
What?
Oh boy.
That's a 16 from Kunnskap.
11 for Girna.
4.
5 for Aksha.
13 for Toby.
Nice. Okay, so anyone with a 10 or higher would know this. So Ozanti is on top of being the. So Ozanti is the goddess of peace and harmony, dreams, sleep, and also waterfalls. Uh, Generally, she's depicted as this very pretty young woman whose hair is kind of like stylized like a waterfall, but also black like the night sky, with stars that seem to constantly be flowing down from it. She has a single horn from her head, the other of which she has fashioned into a pipe that she often is seen smoking. She is also the firstborn daughter of Sylvain, who is the godhead of the Elohim, which is the primary pantheon of deities within Orzadama. And she is very often worshipped by diplomats, philosophers. A lot of druids also have like circles of dreams devoted to her. Yeah, and so this small carving is very clearly a carving of her, and at these altars there are a number of different offerings, a number of different offerings of everything from like bits of wool to flowers. There are little carved like sculptures of horns and obviously the things you would normally expect to see, fruits, favors, etc. Yeah, eventually, you are sort of respectfully corralled, Kunnskap, over to join the rest of the group. So, how could I help you? I I'm very sorry to hear that there's. You said someone missing.
Yes. Uh, a young man named Moscow. I do not know if you perhaps keep records of those who stay the night in your lovely temple.
Um, not generally. There are a lot of people who are just coming for rest and wish to pass through, and it is not so much our job to document. But if perhaps there's a description of him, I could ask for you and see if anyone would know. You said what was his name? Moscow.
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 He's a halfling, lightly tan, 3 feet tall, curly brown hair.
Huh. And how do you know that? With all due respect, how do you know that he stayed here?
Uh,
Who has the coin?
That does.
Kunnskap will just place the coin into Girna's hand. She seems to be taking the lead on this.
And Yurna just kind of.
And I assume he's still sort of like taken with this place, right?
Yeah, Kunnskap is kind of like half-heartedly listening as they're looking around.
Yeah. To be fair, this is most likely the nicest like place of worship you've ever seen, like by far.
And it is a strange thing as Kunnskap's people go into the woods to commune while everyone here seems to go into a building.
Mhm.
It seems counter to how Kunnskap weighs how you're supposed to commune with deities by removing one from nature rather than putting yourself within it.
So Yurna's gonna kind of like, oh, okay, and hold up the coin. We were investigating on his mother's behalf and found this in his quarters.
Strange. Well, if he had stayed here, may I?
Of course. And she hands it.
Takes it and goes, well, if he had stayed here, he would have had to have returned this to us. It's a token for a night of rest. And when you come, you present it, and we take it, and we add it back to our collection, and then you are presented with a bed. Actually, I'm very glad that we found this because we've been missing one.
How does one come into possession of such a thing?
Just like the group of you did, you can kind of walk in here. We have our doors open freely all day, all night, and you can request one. And as long as we have an open bed, you will be given a token, and you can then exchange that for a night of rest here, or a day of rest if you have reason to be out at night. But it guarantees you a bed.
If you said that you've been missing this one, do you by chance know the person who gave out the token?
You'll have to give me a few moments. I will have to go speak with a few people to see what day it went missing and who would have been doing my job that day.
That would be
Well,
most helpful.
Furthermore, as Kunnskap is kind of just like staring at the ceiling, looking around. Does
When
this
you when you look up at the ceiling, it's just this like it's been painted to look like the night sky. There are stars everywhere and a full silver like vena in the center, with the stars kind of scattered around it. The other moon, however, is very pointedly missing.
does this mean that you've had an empty bed for the past few days, weeks while this was missing?
Well, what seemingly had happened is this open bed. We've been trying our best to fill it on the nights we can, but unfortunately, it's difficult because it becomes used for whoever comes in asking for immediate rest, as we have no way of holding it for anyone. So there have been some days that it has been used, but others that it has not.
Yes, if you may get that information, that would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely, I can do that.
Oh, Aksha wants to ask, could we also see this room?
Well, it's not it's not personal rooms. It's almost sort of like a dormitory. There's a number of these beds lined up with small dividers between them. If you'd like, I can go see who's currently resting. But if the beds are free, then absolutely. Otherwise, we will have to respect people's right to rest safely and
Yes, of
without
course.
too much hassle. But if there's anything in particular that you are looking for, I could check the space for it.
Hmm.
It is not much. It's a bed on a very simple frame and a chest in which you can place your belongings.
Hmm. Nothing comes to mind.
All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like me to look into while I'm?
It's maybe a bit of a long shot, but there was another individual, Melangilish, a stoutling, who stayed here little less than a year ago, who we are also seeking anything about, if you have any information.
Bellin, this sort of short, messy hair.
Yes.
I remember Bellin. I gave Bellin his token. Bellin was a good guy, very kind. He was looking for work. He and I had quite a long conversation actually, as he was awake most of that night. He said he couldn't sleep very well. He was he didn't want to tell me what it was that was bothering him, but he kept saying that he was excited for a new start. Or he was hopeful. Maybe excited is the wrong word. I, I get a bit. They tell me I tend to be overly optimistic.
I see. And they were concerned about something?
I I don't know if they were concerned, but something was definitely bothering them. You could tell. Have you ever looked at someone and just known that there was something going on? You could see it sort of in their eyes.
Hmm.
Bellin was troubled over something, I think.
That is good to know. Thank you.
It's very rare someone here doesn't get a restful night's sleep. So when they don't, it leads us to think something may be wrong. We are always happy to offer sit downs and discourse, but not everyone takes us up on that offer. He was also only here for a night, so
Thank you. It is good that you were able to give us at least that much.
I'm really glad that I was able to help. I will go look into the just to go over it again to make sure I'm asking what you need. You wanted to know how long it had been and who had issued the coin? Is there anything else that I am forgetting? All right, then.
Perhaps if
Yes,
anyone was seen with the young Moscow?
I will ask that as well.
Thank you.
Not a problem at all.
Yes. And if it was not Moscow, then who the coin was sent, who given to? Yes.
Absolutely. I will go see if I can find that information. And I will
Actually,
be
much
back
appreciate.
in a couple of moments. If you'd like, please feel free to relax, rest. You can obviously pray if you would like. Uh, I will return shortly.
As
I like
soon as
that.
they are gone, Kunnskap is back up and walking around again.
Sure, yeah.
I'm going to roll a perception check just to see if there's anything that catches their eye.
Sure, absolutely.
It's a 12.
Okay. So the first thing that Kunnskap notices is that a lot of people seem to be looking at them as they make their way through the temple. Some people who have been talking with some of the clergy or are at prayer have stopped and thrown them at least one or two glances, if not lingering longer than that. With that, as you look around, there's nothing that jumps out at you as crazier than the rest. I mean, they're here in this what essentially is a fancy box, worshiping to what you would probably consider to be a false idol. But for all that, there's a serenity here. There's a peace that even you can't really deny exists, even if it's sort of buried beneath a lot of contempt on your part. Um, it's it's just a place that feels almost removed from a lot of the hustle and bustle and stress of what most would consider everyday life. To call it a sanctuary probably would not be an incorrect term.
Kunnskap is just going to continuously circle the entire area.
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of these like offerings that you see at the altars and the incenses that you can smell being burned and sort of wafting out from the statues are just very strange to you for things that anyone would want to give as offerings or in reverence to a god. Why would you do any of this? Uh, Uh, Toby, you haven't shared a room with anyone at this point, right? Have you?
No, I have not.
Okay, cool.
I also, you mentioned that the ceiling is the night sky, but it's a little different.
Yes. So it's the night sky, except there is so there's all the stars and stuff, and there's a full Vena, which is the like bright moon in the sky, but there's no Abos. Abos is completely non-existent here, which is strange because even when Abos is like there's very few times where that will be true. You will have to have the cycle sync up of Abos being completely new and effectively invisible against as the backdrop to the full Vena, and Abos for most of the year is just some sliver or larger of this big sort of almost vacuous space that is darker than the night sky itself.
Is there like an Ozanti contextual reference to this, or
Well, Ozanti in the lore is believed to live in the Platinum Palace with Sylvain, who lives on Vena.
Okay. Is there any like would Toby would just see this and say this is odd
Yeah. There's no
rather
there's-
than knowing anything.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a fair assumption to that, considering the way that most people view Abos, which is as this, because it is this large black void in the sky. Most people view it as something evil or cursed. And so the most like peaceful days of the year or nights of the year are the nights where you can't really see it at all. So here in this place that is clearly supposed to emulate a peaceful, restful, safe space, it is just not something that they included in their art. Is there anything anyone else would like to do?
Chilling, waiting.
Okay. So, after a couple of minutes, and Kunnskap kind of completely walking off, right? They're just going about the place. The elf who had been helping returns, and he goes, "All right, I'm sorry for the wait. I hope it wasn't too long or stressful. I've asked around, and it seems as though acolyte Ale Yalaman was the person who had given this token out, and he does remember it being someone who looked, at least basically the way you described Moscow
Mhm.
to look. It was quite a while ago. It was a number of months back, uh, and it's been gone since. There was he had spent 2 nights here, from what Ale could remember, uh, but and was planning to spend a third night, but never returned. There was someone who they had met with out on the steps, who had sort of picked them up when they left on that second morning, but there's very little that we can help you with on that. And he just does not remember what they looked like.
And do you know more specifically how long ago that was, or just a couple of months?
It was a few months, maybe. I they said it was maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, and that the person that had met with them was an elf, uh, but other than that, very little. She was sort of like tall and lithe, but a lot of us unfortunately fit that bill.
Female elf is still more than we knew before.
Hmm.
So,
Is there anything else that I can do for you while you're here? Would you like a blessing or an opportunity to pray, or perhaps we sell at incredibly modest prices, tokens of the goddess to keep with you.
As they are finishing their statement, Kunnskap is standing right behind them and cocks their head and said, "I would greatly appreciate a blessing."
Absolutely. If you'll be kind enough to wait a few minutes, we will have to wait for one of the clerics to be finished with what they're doing, as I'm still an acolyte and not capable of offering a full blessing. But absolutely, if you're willing to wait a few moments, we can make that happen. Would any of you like one as well?
I would like to see what you have for sale.
Of course, it's just the religious iconography of the Lady of Peace, but there's and he points to a sort of shelf, and on it are the small, like carved statues, and also hooks underneath from which hang like pendants with her symbol.
Okay. I'm gonna get up and go over to that shelf and look at them more closely.
Sure, yeah. They seem like they're of pretty solid make. Whoever it is that they have making these takes time to put in as much detail as they can. Obviously, again, unlike the large statue in the back, none of them are painted, but the details are very clear, down to sort of lines that run across the center of her lips, meant to mimic the single stripe of turquoise that is painted down across them. Her hair is in waves. There are little carved out what look like little like 5-point stars at like spaced at random intervals, and you notice that on each one of their hairs it's a little bit different. The robes that she wears, kind of long underneath the woolen cloak, are carved out so that it looks like there's a bit of a hang between the collar and her wrists. They're a very good make.
So there's two different things, right? There's
Yeah.
the little statue and the little pendant.
Yeah, the pendant is the horn, and it's just this curved like what do they call? I think they're called rock sheep, horned rock sheep horns. And so it's just this like curved horn that comes to a bit of a tip, and then the tip has been sort of like shaved off and rounded out to make kind of like an opening, and the top has also been carved out so it dips a bit. And it's just a small pipe with a little like around the sides of it, a little bit of the like wood has been left on and carved to look like little flowing, almost rivulets of smoke.
So I'm gonna take like one of each and turn back to the acolytes.
Yeah.
Right. And be like, how much?
Well, there is no definitive price. We do have a suggested donation of 4 or 5 silver, but whatever it is that you can afford to give, we are eternally grateful for.
So I'm gonna rummage in my bag to where I'm keeping my coins. I'll pull out a gold piece and hand it to the acolyte and say, my thanks for all the good night's sleep.
That is incredibly generous of you. Thank you so much.
Meanwhile, Toby's like getting his little Ozanti collection.
Yeah, and you can add to your inventory that you have the holy symbol of Ozanti and a little like statuette. Cool.
Yeah.
And then the acolyte looks at the rest of you. Would anyone else like anything?
No, but Yurna's gonna pull out a gold herself and hand it over. A donation for your help.
That is so incredibly kind. Thank you so much. Hopefully this will go towards being able to help with more rest and more peace. These are
Thank-
troubling times.
Yes, the world could use more of both of these things.
Indeed. And then the acolyte will look over at Brori and Aksha for a moment, and unless there's anything said, they will excuse themselves, leaving the group of you to yourselves for now as they go to find a priest or a cleric.
Yurna's gonna turn to Kunnskap. You wish a blessing here?
Call it a test.
Fair enough.
Toby has a question. He wonders if the acolytes and clerics stay here as well, or if they leave.
Many temples, to my knowledge, have housing for the clergy.
Hmm.
Whether this one specifically has one or not, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that you could ask.
Toby will ask when he returns.
So after a couple of minutes, the acolyte returns, and flanking them is a fairly older dwarven gentleman with a very short, very well kept beard and almost no hair except for a few wisps at the top that have sort of been swept over as though trying to hide the incredibly clear fact. He also is dressed in the same sort of woolen robes with the symbol of Ozanti, except on the back of his robes is painted in turquoise, the symbol as well. And he.
I wonder if people become clerics here for the comfort.
I have been told that one of you wishes for the blessing from our Lady of Peace.
Kunnskap will step forward with their head bowed, and as they raise their head, the skull that keeps their mask hidden glows in the eye sockets. That would be me.
Oh, I am so glad to have this opportunity to meet with you. I am Tumold.
I am Kunnskap Soker.
A pleasure, Kunnskap Soker.
I'm gonna roll an insight check.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is he really happy to see me?
It's a 16.
Okay. So you can tell that he's, though he's hiding it pretty well, he's a little bit off put just by how you look visually. You're such a jarringly different aesthetic from pretty much anyone who's ever come in here, at least in his time in the temple. But he's doing his best to not allow that to affect his interactions with you.
I would also wonder if you would accept a blessing from me.
Interesting. Quite a strange request, but who am I to turn away such a kind offer? As long as it is understood that we are sharing with each other a kindness.
I am sharing knowledge, not necessarily kindness.
Is not to learn a kindness of itself.
Depends on what is learned.
In this beautiful city of Southreach, where we all, at least to a point, exist under the deep knowledge of Balas, I would be a fool to turn away any gift of knowledge.
Kunnskap will get on their knees and offer with a hand for the priest to join them.
For a moment, he looks at you very strangely and is quite confused, but eventually he joins you on his knees on the ground with his hand in yours.
You first.
Would you be so kind as to bow your head? And would you be comfortable with me placing my hands upon your shoulders?
Kunnskap nods and lowers their head.
He puts his hands on your shoulders and he goes, now, if again you would be comfortable, I would like you to take your left hand and to cover your eyes with them.
Is this part of the blessing or is this something else?
This is part of the blessing.
Kunnskap will let the glow fade from the mask and then cover their eyes.
After a moment, the priest bows his head as well. And he goes, may it be your will, Our Lady of Peace, to lay us down in peace and rise us in peace. Please allow no disturbing thoughts to upset them, no evil dreams or troubling fantasies. May their bed be complete and whole under your eye. Grant them the light so they do not sleep the sleep of death, and illuminate and enlighten. Praised are you, our white lamb, who offers peace through all turmoil. He takes his hands off of you.
Kunnskap will raise their head and uncover their eyes before reaching out with their other hand to hold both of the priests and begin ritualistically casting ceremony.
Sure. So how does that look for Kunnskap?
I'll get there.
Okay. First, Kunnskap must Google their spell.
Kunnskap holds their hands for a moment before saying, "To the gods of old, I call upon thee. To the gods of old, I present thee. I call to thee." And one hand will reach into their robe and remove the blade that's there. And basically makes it so that their arm are above the others and cut into the arm of themselves and allow the blood to flow down into the hand of the priest. I sacrifice my blood to see. I sacrifice my blood to allow this one to see and to be guided by those who wish to keep them safe. And with that, Kunnskap will remove their hand and nod to the priest before standing up.
Thank you. So that I may be aware and not offend or disregard your blessing. Is there anything in particular that I meant to do with this? Or
Kunnskap was actually not finished.
oh no!
and as they are cupping the blood, Kunnskap will reach over, use their finger to wet their finger before painting a rune on the forehead of the other priest.
Of the acolyte or the
Of the priest, yeah.
okay.
Other priest other than Kunnskap.
Okay, just making sure. This is like you got one consent, but
What a delightful cultural exchange.
Yeah.
I will even take a point of damage for what Kunnskap just did.
you don't have to.
Okay.
No, it's fine. He just and he now is just staying there silently waiting for confirmation that this is finished because he already spoke up once.
Yes, Kunnskap nods and says, "The blessing is finished. You may." And what Kunnskap did for the ceremony was the blood is blessed. It is holy blood, kind of like using it as a holy water spell.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Would it offend you or disregard your blessing if I were to clean my hands? And he gets up and the acolyte gives him sort of a cloth that he uses to sort of wipe his hands, mostly clean. That is very interesting. I've never seen anything like that before.
Perhaps you should get mad more often.
Perhaps. I do greatly thank you for your blessing. There are, by the way, you all can tell, a number of people now who are just kind of watching this with varying levels of confusion or concern, or at least one or two are just like outright, just like affronted by this. You and your friends are welcome here anytime you would like.
There's just a nod, and Kunnskap will go back to the group of friends.
So if the acolyte is still there when this wraps up, Toby's gonna go up to the acolyte and say, "Excuse me."
Yeah, yes, yeah, hi, yes, hello.
Hi, I am Toby. I had a question.
Yeah.
Um,
Whatever we can. Yeah.
Do acolytes and clerics stay here?
We do. Yes, we live on premises.
Do you leave the premises?
Occasionally, we have acolytes go out to do shopping. We have sometimes our priests and clerics will go through the town giving blessings where necessary, and oftentimes a number of us travel because there are always places beyond our own homes that need help with understanding or translating or sharing their dreams. And as members of the Children of the Lamb, we also often will send people to mediate in disputes, both civic and sometimes violent.
Toby was just wondering why you had not looked for the coin.
We had looked around a bit, but unfortunately, it was not our primary concern, and a lot of the time, it's just easier to request new ones made, which we just had not gotten the opportunity to do yet.
Toby understands. Thank you. And say thank you to Ozanti if you see her.
There's an audible snort from Kunnskap.
Aksha bounces over to Toby and like taps him and he's like, "Oh, long shot, but ask about your fish."
Oh, yes. Good idea, little one. Turns around, pulls out the container with the 10 fish in it, goes back up to the cleric and the acolyte and been like, yes. Had either of you seen a fish like this before? And opens it. Like, I imagine the smell is going to eventually start getting bad.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but we're very, very close.
We get there.
Yeah, like another day, probably. And they both confirm for you that they have never seen this before. And apologize for not being able to help.
Okay, thank you. Turns back to Aksha. It's like, was worth a shot.
It was worth trying.
Yes.
And here, I think, is where we're going to be wrapping up this episode for today. Thank you all for joining me. I hope everyone had fun. And we will see what is next in the cards for our wonderful group and the very interesting rituals of Kunnskap Soccer in our next episode of Dice Trays Action. We'll see you next week. Until then, take care.